This is the history of Russian and Ukraine. Part 1. The beginnings of Russia and Ukraine. Imagine looking at a map of Europe in the 8th century BC. No Russia, no Ukraine, no modern nations. Just vast, untamed landscapes inhabited by wild warriors, secret trade routes, and powerful horse-riding peoples. Yet, right here, at a secret crossroads between Asia and Europe, begins a story that will shape the rise of two modern superpowers, Russia and Ukraine. But how did it all begin? What is the origin of these two nations, which have fought with and against each other throughout history? The answer lies deep in the Middle Ages, and their roots reach back to ancient times. Welcome to our journey into the past to uncover the fascinating heritage of Kievan Rus. 1. The time of Homer, 8th century BC. Let's begin in the 8th century BC, when the area of present-day Ukraine and Russia was still unknown and inhabited by mystical peoples. In the region around Kiev, it was primarily the Cimmerians, a nomadic horse-riding people, who dominated the land. These early warriors were not only distinguished by their extraordinary warfare skills, but also by a complex trade network that spanned vast distances. In what is now Russia, it was the flatlands of the western part, inhabited by Finno-Ugric tribes like the Meria and Muroma. These groups, who lived off hunting, fishing, and early forms of agriculture, also had initial trade contacts with the Black Sea region. But urban centers were still missing. The foundation for future empires had yet to be laid. 2. The era of the Scythians and Greek colonies, of 5th century BC. The rise of the Scythians, a warlike nomadic people, now shaped the territory of present-day Ukraine. These warriors dominated the steppes and turned the region into a strategic center for trade between Europe and Asia. But what was truly remarkable was the role of the Scythians as intermediaries between the Greek colonies and Asian peoples. They used the Black Sea coast as trade routes, influencing the culture and exchange between different civilizations. The Greeks founded significant cities along the coast, such as Olbia, Chersones, and Pantikapaion. These cities were not just trade centers, but also cultural melting pots that brought Greek ideas and art to Eastern Europe. While modern-day Kiev did not yet exist, the region around the Dnieper River was already an important part of this international network. 3. Roman influences and the end of the Scythians, a 1st century BC. With the decline of the Scythians, the Sarmatians, another Indo-European horse-riding people, began to dominate the region. These warriors not only fought their own wars, but also formed alliances with the Romans and Parthians. The influence of the Roman world was evident, particularly along the Black Sea coast, where the Romans took control of the Greek cities. Despite Roman influence, the region was still characterized by semi-nomadic tribes and small settlements. Kiev and Moscow were not yet significant cities at this time. Their emergence would take centuries to unfold. 4. The migration period and the rise of the Slavs, 4th to 6th century AD. The migration period was one of the most formative epochs in Eastern European history. Around 400 AD, neither Kiev nor Moscow existed as urban centers. Instead, the area around Kiev was inhabited by Slavic tribes such as the Polans, who lived in small, loose communities along the Dnieper River. These settlements represented the first steps toward a future political center, but the region was still far from becoming a unified power. Moscow, today considered one of the most important cities in the world, was at this time just an uninhabited area, traversed by Finno-Ugric peoples like the Merja. The region mainly consisted of small, agriculturally oriented communities, a fact that would change only in the Middle Ages. The beginning of Kievan Rus is hidden deep in the mists of history, in a time when no great cities shaped the land, and the future was uncertain. But the Slavs and the Huns would soon usher in a new era, one that would forever alter the political map of Europe and Asia. In the next part, we will explore how the power dynamics in the region changed and how these small settlements gave rise to the mighty empire of Kievan Rus. Part 2. Ukraine and Rus. Between 400 and 850 AD, the region of Eastern Europe underwent a dramatic transformation. After the end of the migration period, marked by the movements of the Huns, Avars, and other nomadic groups, political structures began to change. The Slavic tribes, which had previously been organized in small village communities, started to spread and form larger communities. This led to remarkable expansion and the creation of new, dynamic trade routes, which made Eastern Europe a crucial junction between the Byzantine Empire, Scandinavia, and the Orient. The transition from this chaotic era of migration to a more stable time was marked by the rise of Kiev as a power center. Around 860 AD, Kiev became a significant center for trade and administration, under the control of the Varangians, Scandinavian traders and warriors. According to legend, Kiev was founded by the brothers Kij, Shek, and Choriv. But it was only through Varangian rule that the city gained strategic importance. Located ideally along the Dnieper, Kiev controlled key transition points along the famous trade route from the Varangians to the Greeks, which connected northern Europe with the Byzantine Empire. Alongside Kiev, other cities, like Novgorod and Smolensk, also developed into important trade hubs. These cities were heavily fortified and served not only as economic centers, but also as administrative outposts that controlled and protected the surrounding areas. The Kievan Rus, which later gave its name to the entire region, did not emerge spontaneously, but as a result of close interactions between the native Slavic tribes and the Varangians. These Scandinavian warriors and traders, originally from the area of modern-day Sweden, used the rivers of Eastern Europe to establish trade routes between the Baltic and the Black Sea. They brought not only goods, but also new political structures and cultural influences to the region. The term Rus first appeared in Byzantine sources, referring to these Scandinavian traders and warriors. The name might derive from the Finnish word ruotsi for Sweden. Over time, the Slavic tribes also adopted this term, which eventually became the foundation of Kievan Rus and shaped the political and cultural identity of the region. Trade and its driving forces. The Dnieper River played a central role as the natural lifeblood of the medieval European trade network. It connected northern Europe with the Byzantine Empire and was one of the most important trade routes in the region. Goods from the dense forests and vast steppes of the north were transported south and east, while exotic items from distant lands made their way north. Trade was not only an important economic driver, but also a catalyst for cultural exchange between different regions. Some of the key exports from the north included furs, sourced from animals like beavers, sables, and foxes, which were particularly sought after in the southern regions. Other valuable exports included wax and honey from the northern forests, as well as Baltic amber, prized for its beauty and rarity, and transported far beyond the trade routes. The slave trade also played a significant role in the exchange between East and West, with people being traded as commodities. In return, luxurious imports from the South and East arrived. Silk, glass, and wine from the Byzantine Empire made their way north, enriching the lives of the societies there. Silver coins from the Abbasid Caliphate were used as currency, strengthening economic ties between the East and the North. Trade in spices and fine jewelry from the Orient contributed to the cultural and economic diversification and influenced fashion and lifestyle in the region. The main trade routes. The region around Kiev was a key junction in the vast trade network that connected Europe with Asia. In addition to the Dnieper, several significant trade routes existed. Volga route. This route led from the Volga River to the Caspian Sea and further into the Persian Empire. It was particularly important for the trade in furs, honey, and silk, and provided access to the Abbasids and Khazars. Dnieper route. The Dnieper connected Kiev directly to the Black Sea and the trade routes of the Byzantine Empire. This waterway was crucial for the exchange of luxury goods and coins, providing a direct link to the southern trade centers. Don route. Through the Don and the Sea of Azov, one could reach the Caucasus regions and continue to Central Asia. This route was particularly significant for the exchange of spices, precious metals, and other valuable goods. Land routes through the steppe. Complementing the river routes, trade paths passed through the steppe regions, controlled by the Khazars, and provided direct access to Asia. These land routes were important for exchanges with the empires of the East and opened up new possibilities for trading exotic goods. Resources and political power. The expansion of Kievan Rus was driven not only by economic factors such as trade, but also by the pursuit of political control. The fertile lands and control over key trade routes made the region particularly attractive to the Scandinavian leaders, known as the Rurikids, who sought areas to dominate. They found allies and subjects in the Slavic tribes, who supported them. Languages and cultures in the region. At the time, the region was a melting pot of various languages and cultures, which greatly influenced communication and daily life. The main languages of the period were Old Slavic. This language was the dominant one among the native Slavic tribes, and later formed the basis for the East Slavic languages. Old Norse. Spoken by the Varangians, this Germanic language influenced particularly the dialects in trade centers and shaped local culture. Turkic languages. Nomadic groups like the Khazars and Avars, living in the southern steppes, spoke Turkic languages, which mainly influenced the military vocabulary of the Slavs. Greek. Due to the influence of the Byzantine Empire, Greek had a strong presence in the Black Sea regions and along major trade routes, especially in administration and religious life. These cultural and linguistic differences led to intense exchange, where the various groups learned from and influenced one another. Especially the Varangians, who brought a different language and culture, had to find creative ways to communicate with the native peoples. In addition to simple trade dialects, gestures, symbols, and non-verbal communication played a significant role. Over time, the Varangians increasingly adopted the local languages to solidify their rule and promote trade. This linguistic exchange not only strengthened economic relations, but also fostered cultural dialogue between the different peoples of the region. The development of Kievan Rus was thus the result of a complex interplay of trade, politics, and cultural exchange, which made the region a central hub in medieval Europe.